The Ticket Machine is the official ticket broker of Spartan Nation. No matter what you need a ticket for, border to border, coast to coast, the Ticket Machine is your ticket source. So whether you need to get into the hottest concerts, the best sporting events, you want the best seats in the house, or you just want to get in the door, when you want to go to any event that requires a ticket, anywhere, border to border, coast to coast, it's always theticketmachine.com. Theticketmachine.com, 517-655-3201. Check it out today at theticketmachine.com.
I've been playing Cassius the last 4 minutes of the first half to pacify all of my great supporters out there. I thought we did some good things in the first half of the game. So overall, we played pretty good. We played pretty good defensively, and I got to feel good about that. But after watching the film, a lack of our fast break is created by some of the new bodies in there, and gives us a lot of things to work on. As far as the overall right now, got to be pleased if you're 6-0 in the Big Ten, especially when you had 3 conference road wins and another big road win this past weekend. Didn't think we played our best, but I thought we did get some valuable minutes out of our freshmen. I think Gabe played 21. I don't know what Aaron played more than that. 25, and Foster got 11 or 12 minutes in, so that was, we got some production out of that. But these next 10 days, with the teams we're playing, it's going to really lead to some challenges, and it starts with no better team than Nebraska. Right now, they're playing well. They've won 20 straight home games or something. It's a tough place to play. They present some problems that they're really big at the guards and very athletic at center with a guy and Roby that can do a lot of different things. I think we create some problems for them, and that they don't have that physical guy inside, and so I'm sure they'll do some different things on Nick. As far as Josh and Kyle, it's status quo. We're hoping by the end of this week to know a little bit more on Josh. As far as Kyle goes, it's pretty much day to day. We kept him home so he didn't ride on the plane with the sprained back. We won't practice today, but should have a better feel on him in the next couple of days. I think you saw the group we're probably going to play with on Thursday, yesterday. So we'll see what happens. As far as Nebraska goes, they play tonight against Indiana, and that should be a whale of a game. They're averaging nearly 80 points a game, scored 70 or more in over half their games. Big guards will be a challenge for us. We won't be able to play with 2 small guards very much. Palmer's averaging almost 20 a game. Has 8 20-point plus games, and they got 4 players in double figures. Copeland is a very good player, averaging 14. Watson has been playing the whole time, and I think Roby, even though he's only averaging 11.5 points a game, is a tough matchup. A very athletic kid who has had some moments where he's shown he can play beyond college. So we're looking forward to the challenge. We got to get on track with our freshmen, get our break back on track, get our lanes running again. Been a little frustrated in that respect, but it's also been rewarding that we're 15-2 going through both, McQuaid early, Josh for quite a while now, and Arnie late. And all at a similar position probably makes the run a little more impressive if I was an optimist, or a little more disappointing if I'm a pessimist. So you guys pick what I am. Questions?
Tom, 6-0 in the Big Ten, 15-2 as you have alluded to, but when you look at those injuries, none of these guys are out for the season. Can it be a blessing down the road because you're being forced to give those freshmen minutes that when March comes, maybe they've gotten more than they wouldn't have had these guys not been injured?
It's funny because conventional wisdom will tell you that's true. the funny thing is, if you listen to the talking heads, and this is one of the things they're normally right about, when you get in the NCAA tournament, you're usually shrinking your playing group. You got what seems like 4-hour TV time so they can pay Fred's salary, so they have big TV breaks. They have, it just seems like you're going with your best players. I think anytime you get experience is good for guys, but I don't know if there's anything good about having injuries. It's just, it makes it very difficult as a coach. It makes it difficult for Cassius. He's been running that break so well, all of a sudden guys aren't running as hard, or they're not running as wide, or they're not running as deep. And so you've got some issues. I didn't think we did a very good job of feeding the post. I thought Nick was open yesterday. I'd like Utopia to have none, but we've had 3, and it's been at the same position, more or less. And so I think our guys have handled it probably better than I have.
You last night after the game, you were kind of a little bit, I guess, harsh maybe on the guys, but today you obviously have a little chance to review. At this point in the year, is this a point where you have to kind of maybe pick apart when you're 15-2 to say you need to focus in so guys don't get big heads when you have a good run like you're having right now record-wise?
Yeah, I think it's always a worry. I think it's a worry for every coach with, the social media creates those problems. I mean, it creates them for you, it creates them for us, and it creates them for them. But what I think you got to be is honest with your guys. And honesty can be in a lot of different ways. In other words, depending what your goals and dreams are. And I've stated all along, I've got individual goals and I've got team goals for my players. And so sometimes you get a big win and maybe the team goal is achieved, but the individuals within that win, you have goals for them too. And that's what I'm trying to focus on, because I do know at the end of the day, if the individual goals are met, the team goals most likely will be met. And it does get to be a point in time of the year where, you get a lot of people, you look at a lot of different things. I have a big staff meeting right after this, because I think we get, you get difference of opinion and how hard you got to go, how much rest you got to give people. Injuries, kind of make that where it's not a laboratory experiment where the variables are always the same, and it makes it a little more difficult. But I think I've been pretty consistent with them when they played well. When individuals have played well, I've tried to say that. When we haven't played as well, you can say it one of two ways. You can do everything behind closed doors, but then the general public, they got one voice telling them they're not playing well and 10,000 voices telling them they are. That creates a problem too. I'm not trying to make anybody, I'm not trying to be harsh on anybody. I have a goal, and the goal is obtained by a group of 20-some people that are in that office up there and those players, that it is a common goal. It's let's figure out what we want to do, let's figure out where we think we can get, let's be realistic about it. Tell your wife she's bothering me during a press conference. If you just kidding. If you are looking at, is everybody on the same page? And then a leader of that group's job is to hold everybody accountable to that. And it's getting a little more difficult, but I'm proud of what this team has done. I'm proud of the adversity they've faced. Once in a while I need a slap in the face too to make sure I understand that. But I also know what I believe they can accomplish individually and as a team. And the day I quit pushing for those dreams and goals, I'm going to be a talk show host.
Tom, for Aaron and Gabe, how much is it kind of a step up in difficulty going against Nebraska's perimeter? Obviously, a little bit bigger, a little bit more talented. How much more are you going to need out of that line?
A lot more experienced, and that's the one thing I think Nebraska has now. They got a lot of juniors and seniors on that team, and guys that have played a lot of minutes over the years, and so experienced. They're good. They're talented. A couple guys, looked at the pro last year. This is a good basketball team, and I thought Aaron did some good things, and I thought Gabe did some good things. But I think they've got to do more things at a consistent level, and understand that their job is to do the things that it takes to do their job right. And if they don't, Nick gets affected, Cash gets affected. Scoring points, that's something different. Effort-related things is something that I think I can hold them accountable. Skill-related things is something that's going to take some time to build.
How can you make all these games important when it really doesn't count until March?
Oh, that just depends on who you are. I've been brought up in the era that the Big Ten championship means a lot. And when you go to 20 games, it even means more. And so I have never looked at the tournament as being, any more important. I mean, I understand where I'm at, I understand what we built, but trust me, I still think at times it's harder to win a Big Ten championship than anything you do. And when they moved it to 20 games, that might be the hardest feat of all. The Big Ten tournament championship, so of course a national championship is hard, but deep runs in the tournament sometimes come down to who you play and who gets upset and this and that. When you're in a conference like ours right now, to be winning in this conference, I got a million reasons to be motivated for that. I don't look at this like maybe like I should. I mean, the tournament means a lot to me. The run means a lot. The Final Four means a lot. The regular season. What doesn't mean as much to me is the preseason. If I have to take a loss, if I have to do this and that, if I schedule, there's a reason I'm doing it. But that I can stomach. It's the Big Ten is still, I've been brought up that the Big Ten is still the most important part of the year, and I still believe that.
So how does a team lose 2 lottery picks and appear as though it doesn't miss a beat?
Well, appear is a good word. I think there's a couple reasons. Number one, we still have a long way to go to get to, 30-3 in the regular season. All right, and that's 29-3 we were. That's number one. Number two, you hope you don't have all the distractions that we went through last year that might not give that team a true view of what they were. And number three, maybe the most important one in some ways, is we now have experienced guys that were healthy, and now we have some experienced guys that aren't as healthy, and yet the experienced guys are able to get us through that. McQuaid has done some unbelievable things and probably gets the least recognition of them all. Cassius and Nick have played very well. I got to make sure they don't wear down. We've gotten a lot out of Kenny Goins, who him and McQuaid are a lot healthier this year than they were those other years. So I think experience would probably be the number one reason you can be a good team. This is the process that's supposed to happen in sports that has been changed a little bit just by all the emphasis put on freshmen and things like that, one and done guys. So this is more the norm, and it's why teams do get better. And I think some of these teams that are playing well right now, other than Duke, have a lot of experience, whether it be Michigan, Virginia, Gonzaga, Tennessee. You look at those top teams, and they're filled with a lot of experienced people, and not playing as many freshmen other than Duke.
Tom, when we talk about the freshmen, we usually talk about what they bring on the court. I'm just wondering, at this point in the year, with those 5, how are they holding up from a mental and physical fatigue standpoint, and obviously coming into a stretch where some of those guys are going to be relied upon more than they have been.
Yeah, and they have no clue right now, trying to explain to them what it's like to go to Nebraska. And, I think this was the third game we went to where the shirts were out. I don't think they understand that. I try not to make them somebody too much. Sometimes I take that too far because, you get there and the night before and all the shirts are, you get to Louisville, you get to Florida, and, they get shirts and pom-poms and everything. We have become marquee games for some of those teams, and that's a privilege. As I said, it's an honor, and yet it's a responsibility, and hard for freshmen to gain that. Cash understands that, Nick understands that, Cueto understands that, but the freshmen, they don't have a clue right now. And then the freshmen are also probably have already had more practice than they had their entire, season. They've already played in 17 games. They only played 20 in an entire season. So that mental fatigue comes in, and it's more difficult for the guys that aren't playing as much, like Thomas and Marcus for sure, that are we're going to really need, but they got to get through the year, and so it's something we talk to them a lot about. We spend time with them on it. We have our other players talk to them about, and thank God our players have done a great job with our own guys, and that's probably helped. But I would think mentally, this is where it gets a little crazy for them.
Tom, obviously Josh and Kyle bring a lot of different things that you're missing right now, but would you say that the transition game, the break, is probably where you're missing those guys the most at this point?
I would a little bit defensively, but I would definitely say that the transition, and because it took Josh a year to learn how to run his lanes, and with the speed, really the two guys we got there are probably better flat-out athletes than the other guys we were playing in front of them, but having the knowledge to know that the first two steps matter, that you got to get out wide, that you got to get deep so that we space the court well. Those things have been a little bit of a struggle for us. Hopefully this week we can clean up a little bit of that, but it's not going to happen overnight. And it's just funny that we thought there was a lot of times we could have punched it in the net and we didn't do it, or a lot of times where Cash came down and now he's got a wall there because guys aren't running deep enough. We just got to clean up some things that are more effort related than skill and more understanding related, and we just got to coach them a little better, do a little better job on that, because they're two kids that want to do whatever they need to do. We just got to make sure we're holding them accountable to doing that.
You talk about individual goals, team goals. You seem to have a good thing going with guys, maybe not caring too much about who gets what. How difficult of a dynamic is that to maintain over the course of the year?
If there's one thing that I've been blessed with so far, even last year, we had the two superstars. They never talked to you about going pro, or I don't think they did. They never acted like, they had to shoot the ball or they needed their points. Maybe those guys were two of the great role models for unselfishness by a star player. Now Cassius, Nick this year, out of those double teams, last year he was trying to score every time he got it. He's made some great passes. We're so much better than we were last year in that area. And Cassius, sometimes he could care less. I got to set up things for him to score and tell him he's got to take shots because he's a pass-first point guard that just happens to be a great scorer. So I've really been lucky that I haven't had to deal with that at all. I think our assists prove that we're one of the great sharing teams of all time, to be honest with you. So whether that changes a little bit now as the plot thickens, we'll see, but they've given me no reason that I think it will, at least so far.
You talk about having a leader holding guys accountable. Can't always be you and the staff. Who in the locker room is the key piece of holding?
I think Josh was, and I think McQuaid is now. that guy, and I think Cassius is working towards that. But McQuaid has actually done a good job, and Josh has done a very good job. He probably changed the most in that area, and with Josh out, it's forcing Cassius to have to do more, but I already got him doing enough things. So I think the locker room's been good. I think we just haven't had a lot of distractions as far as those guys, just the injuries. You know, that's been the distraction. Team gets along, which is easy to see, but the team is very unselfish, which sometimes is harder to see. What I'm trying to tell those freshmen is, you know, part of the job and doing their job frees other guys. If you do run better, if you do this better, and they're not doing that selfishly. They're just not doing that because of knowledge and experience. And so we really gotta spend some time with them this week, and hopefully, you know, in the next couple of days, we'll have a better clue on the length of time for both guys that are out.
Earlier in the year, when you had to face UCLA, Texas, Louisville, you described that stretch as the 6-game stretch as one of the toughest maybe in your tenure so far. But when you look at this stretch that you're going through, how do you best describe it with 4 and 5 on the road in the Big Ten?
Well, I would describe that other one still one of the toughest, because we not only had them on the road, but they were great distances apart, and they were teams you're not as familiar with, so that makes it more difficult. But this is going to overtake that because of the injuries and you know, the new people and all the things that we're going to have to deal with there. And one thing about basketball, when you go on the road, you know, the home court field advantage is probably greatest in basketball. I got a chance to go to our hockey game out there. I took my team over there for a period and a half. It was really cool. Then they did an unbelievable job, won the game. I wasn't there for the end because we had our own meetings and meal and stuff we had to go to, but we were there, and it's hockey, it's big, you know, the crowd, it was a good crowd, but there's something about basketball where it's so close and it creates such a different atmosphere. Nebraska, you know, is one of the great venues now in the Big Ten. I mean, you know, I took my first trip to Nebraska with Saban and our football team, his first game, and you know, we went out that night, my wife and I went out with John Demmer to dinner and that, and people in Nebraska were so nice. I don't know what the hell happened to Larson, but those people down there were so good. They, you know, they're rabid fans, but they're very respectful fans. And in basketball, I mean, when that team wasn't doing as good, they were following them, and now they're doing well, and our freshmen have to adjust to that. When we played those games, most of them were on neutral sites. Florida and Louisville weren't, but the other 4 were kind of neutral. And so I think this will be a bigger challenge just because of those 2 situations.
We've talked a lot about what the transition for the freshmen is like, and you mentioned that things that you feel like you can't excuse are like effort-related problems. Do you think part of that is in high school, when you're so much better than everybody you're playing against, you can afford to take the possession off and it doesn't matter? And then how do you kind of change that mindset going forward?
Well, in high school, you can take a possession or 2 off and it doesn't matter. U-ball, you can take a lot of possessions off and it doesn't matter. So, yeah, they've been programmed, and they, you know, I feel sorry for those kids. I mean, there's been some things that have helped them. Competition they play and things like that. There's some things that hurt them, and the good thing is I know nobody's doing it on purpose. It's just part of the process, you know. And I always tell you there's a process with everything, and sometimes fans or media get impatient with the process. Goes to show I'm closer to you than you think, because I get impatient with the process too. But I do understand there is one, and I keep looking at how can I speed it up. I can speed it up by maybe having more film sessions, bringing those guys in more. I can't wear them out more. I just got to show them, talk to them, show them, talk to them, show them, talk to them. And hopefully then I have Josh talk to him about what he went through his freshman year. Cash talk to him, Nick talk to him. That's what I'm trying to do right now, because all of a sudden those guys are going to become a very important part, all 3 of them, you know, and that's going to be the challenge of at least a week ahead, and who knows how much longer.
just yesterday's game, Cash has got doubled probably more than he has in a while. They were also challenging that outlet pass on the break. I guess, where is that at in terms of his maturation to seek more attention with Josh out and then progress from there to try and play around through it?
Well, I think that's what's hard for Cassius right now is Cassius is the kind of guy that he just plays and has always figured it out. But you know, Cassius and Nick are going to get more attention. And they're going to get more attention now because of the loss of a couple of guys that were playing awfully well. That's why it was so important. McQuaid came back and shot the ball pretty well. But those outlets, you know, if they don't have to worry about those wings as much, they can afford to do that. And some teams will try to do that. We've got some counters we're going to look at the next couple of days to try to eliminate some of that. But it also takes more wear and tear on Cassius. And, you know, they're going to start doubling the post more. They'll start trapping the ball screens. I mean, we're going to be ready for everything, though. That's what maybe his experience, our experience will help. But there's no question, you know, I told Nick this last year. It's a compliment to get double teamed. Nick didn't like that last year. He didn't kind of agree with that theory. And now he agrees with it, and he's learned to work his way out of it. And he's actually, I mean, I could count the turnovers on a finger that he's had out of that post. And last year I'd have to use, you know, 10 fingers, 10 toes. And so he's definitely improved on that. We're going to have to improve on that because I think you'll see more and more of that.
Tom, I was just curious. I know in the past you've had some of your former leaders get in touch with your current leaders, or just anybody sort of felt like had something they could value that could offer to have.
Well, it's funny because I'm going to bring in a couple guys here the next day. You know, I think you know, you get to the point where you win 15, 16 games, and now you're legitimate, being talked about and things, and so I'd like to bring back some of my guys. You know, some guys have always called our guys. I mean, Denzel's always, Jared and Miles are calling them all the time. Tom calls a lot. I think right now I'm going to try to bring in a couple of local guys that I think can explain to them the pressure that there is and also the responsibility you have and how to deal with it all. Because you're right, as a coach, I got a lot of experience in that, but I'm not playing the game either. And so I think it's helpful, and I think that's one of the things right now that I'm going to take advantage of.
With Josh and McQuaid as your current captains, obviously, is there any former guys that you like to link up with those two specifically, just knowing their style and knowing?
Well, Zell has done a lot with both of them. Zell has talked to him, but I think even for Cassius, you know, Mateen or Travis or guys that, you know, Andre Hudson is a guy that I plan on bringing in because Andre has a, you know, we forget, we were talking the other day in our staff room, and Doug Herner was in there, and, you know, he was born BC, so he has a lot of experience on what went on, and we're talking about our first Final Four team, and, you know, that team was better than this team in some ways, and I went through it player by player. You know, you forget Andre was a sophomore then. We played against Elton Brand, he was 212 pounds, you know, got the daylights beat out of him. And, but we got there, you know, and so keeping things in perspective on what we got to do, but also understanding that the challenges for these guys is different. You know, these last 3 or 4 years, they're different challenges than maybe those guys had early on, but the goals can be somewhat similar. And so, yeah, I'm going to have, it was just one of the neat things we met about this morning. I think it's always great. I think I've taken advantage of it, but I think I need to take even more advantage of it because of, you know, every year you have different kind of leaders, and right now I think that would help this team.
Talk basketball and hockey, how about a little football?
Yeah.
Have you, with this time with Nick, have you met Belichick, and what do you think of a guy who's been to 13 championship games?
I love it. You know, I do. forgive me, all 500,000 alums, but I love what Tom Brady's done. He's taken some challenges. He's cocky enough to be good, and yet, you know, cocky enough to be great, but not cocky enough to let it ruin him. You know, I loved his comments. I tell my guys, I'm telling you, every time there's these big events, I really do. I tell them after a pregame meal, watch some of the NFL thing today, the lead-up shows, because you get all these interviews and people, they teach you what to do right, what to do wrong. And but I did get a chance, you know, when Belichick used to come here and visit Nick and sat on the back of the Knicks property while he was chainsawing down a tree, and got a chance to talk to Belichick a little bit. And it's interesting, you know. Everybody wanted to make a big deal about their relationship. Everybody wanted to make a big deal about this was going to be the final time. There's nothing greater in the world than to, I say two of the best things you can do is win on an opponent's court. That's a great feeling. Or, I gotta think of the right choice of words. Kind of challenge people that doubt you on what you can do. That was such a polite way of saying what I was going to say, but I think you get what I was going to say, you know.
Everybody has the lawyer.
Where the sun doesn't shine, or whatever you want to say. But I think he's done it, you know. I'm not sure I can do everything the way he's done it, but consistency is what we're all looking for. And it drives players crazy, but you know, they've been pretty consistent, and every once in a while they have a little chink in the armor. They didn't have quite the year. If you look at some of the ups and downs, the Miami game, some of the things that happened. But consistently, they've taught me something about injuries. You know, God, it seems like they could put, you know, you and Jack in as receivers, and either the quarterback's good enough to find you or the system's good enough to win. And that's awesome. I mean, so I have changed a little bit. You know, you get sick of the same dynasties, and then you kind of realize that that means that those people believe in a system, adjust to the times a little bit, but never change the culture of what they're doing. And those are my favorite human beings now. So I guess I'm a Belichick fan. I mean, the other thing I got a kick out of, that way I think would be apropos to any sport, is they talk about all these new young guns coming in that can throw the ball all over the place, and the youngest guy in the league already win the game, block, tackling, ran it right up there, Kulu, you know? I mean, that's what they did. It was smash mouth football for LA, and how cool is that, you know? There's still certain ways you do things if you're going to stay successful. You can have these fad things that come and go, but the consistency, basketball, you got to be able to defend and rebound the ball. You know, you probably can't turn it over like we do, and that's one negative we've got right now. We've got football, you got to block and tackle and run the ball. You know, I mean, you can throw it around and you can win some games, but you aren't staying very consistent that way. So that's why I love watching all sports. It's pretty much the same in all of them. The things you got to do to be successful are pretty much the same.
Time for one or two more.
Tom, you said that you hear from players like Jared and Miles, and I know you guys are so busy with the season, but have you had a chance to watch them in their NBA careers, and what do you think about their performance so far?
Watch them all the time. You know, that's what late nights are for. Good or bad, I got most of them playing in a different Gary and Draymond, and I even watched Tom had a big win the other night. But Jaron, you know, was Zell, they're all in different time zones, so I can come home and do that. Miles is the only one that gets hurt by that, so I try to catch him when he's playing one of those guys in a different time zone. But I think they're doing great, you know, I really do. You know, Jaron's had the biggest impact in a way, but Miles has had some very good nights too, and he's played when, I don't know where it came from, but he's actually being used as a defender. tease him about it all the time. I said, Coach must be crazy or something, you know, but, and they've been very positive about their experience, you know. Everybody wants to play more, everybody wants to do more, everybody wants to win more, but they're doing well, and it's been fun to follow them and watch them, and exciting when, you know, Jaren's mom always gives me a buzz and fills me in if she thinks I'm not listening, like I've forgotten about him, then I get a nice text from her, you know, still green in this house, and she knew the score of the game, and she watched the game, and they watch it too, so it's awesome.
Tom, everybody who knew Gus really experienced a loss, and for you personally, you knew him professionally, but you also knew him personally. Could you take the fans kind of inside what Gus meant to you as a man?
Well, you know, Gus was an interesting guy. I met him early on when I came here because I was so polite. Gregory Kelser and I had a long talk yesterday. He was still out in LA getting ready to go to Denver, and we were just talking about Gus, the person, you know, and you know, if Judd was my mentor, but if Judd would have worked for me, I don't even know, I can't even say that right, but it would have probably not worked out too well. You know, our personalities were the same. Gus had that silver lining in every cloud personality, and he was always so supportive, but he was very smart and intelligent too, you know, and he'd tell me, you know, what he thought we did right and wrong. The difference, Judd told me what we did wrong, and Gus sometimes told me too much what we did right. But maybe that was a good balance, and I'd hate to be in the middle of that up above, because there'll be some wars over that, but it was a guy that helped me through, you know, probably my toughest time. Beginning of my career, trying to develop the culture I wanted, trying to get the players back that I wanted, trying to set the stage for what I thought this program could be. And he really, honestly, was a very valuable part of that. And it wasn't like he X'd and O'd with me, you know, where Judd would do that. His was more the mental part. His was more getting over a loss. His was more being gracious with a win. One of my favorite things, you know, I told some of you when we arrived in Penn State the other day, I walked out, I looked out, and we hadn't been there in 2 years, you know, because 2 years ago we played at the Palestra, and then last year we didn't travel there. And I looked up and I kind of forgot where I was, and as I turned, there was this prop jet over there, and we used to fly in those things, you know, it was like Cleveland Indians, that old, you know, it was an old prop plane, and Gus walked into the propeller and cut his nose so bad that he left skin on the blade of it, and we brought him back here, brought him over. Doc had to sew him up over at hockey game that night, and there were just so many of those nights that I recall, you know, and he was a savior for me, because back then, you know, I was probably crazier than I am now, and he was a stabilizing factor, and having him right down the hall for some of that will be special. But I don't have regrets for him, because, you know, as I said, if I could take his 92-year-old credit card, and live 91 of those years as well as he lived them, I would take that any day of the week. So I'm saddened that he's not with us anymore, that he's not a phone call away, but I'm happy that he got to live the life he lived and share some of it with me, and I'll be eternally grateful for that. I really will. One more, or are you done? One more?
Going back to some of your former players in Indiana, I was just wondering if you saw Gary Harris's dunk over Miles Bridges a few weeks ago, and or maybe just last week, and if you had any thoughts on that, did you know that he had that in him?
Well, I did know that he had it in him. I didn't see it live. I saw it on replay. And of course, sent Miles a little text that, you know, he's letting down the state of Michigan by letting an Indiana guy do that to him. But since they're both Spartans, I was happy for Gary because he's been injured, as you know, just coming off his injury. And Miles is a rook. He's a freshman. Ain't going to happen to Miles very often. I promise you, in his career, he'll do more dunking on somebody than getting dunked on. So it's one of the things that I think Magic always said. I think Draymond says, you know, when those guys are in the league and they go place to place, I mean, it's fun when I get a text or I get a picture sent from Zell of him and Gary sitting there together before the game. I got one from Tom of him and Miles. I got one with him and Jaren. You know, it's Draymond and both Miles and Tom have sent me pictures, and those things are kind of cool. You know, it just kind of makes you feel good that they have a commonality at Michigan State, and I think they both have represented us really well. Gary's having a hell of a year. His team has really been good, although they lost to Tom's team the other day. I'm sure there was a lot of things talked back and forth there. But I'm proud of all those guys and happy for them. And hopefully they'll keep supporting us and watching, because I think we have a team through all the ups and downs of the injuries lately. It's a fun team to coach. It's a fun team to watch, and yet I think we still have a big ceiling to get to. I think we can improve in some areas that are going to be needed, and I think we have some big challenges ahead of us. And I think the best thing that we're going to have to learn how to do now is, you know, somebody's going to lose some games, and how do we handle that, and how do we do it will be the next test that this team hasn't had to deal with in a while. I don't know how many we've won in a row now. 10. And that's all good, but you know, it's going to be challenging here this next couple of weeks, and even, you know, our home game is with Maryland, who might be playing as good as anybody in the league right now. Three very good players, so I promise it'll be a challenge down in Nebraska, and right now I think we'll be going with what you see, but Kyle is still day to day, and we'll see what happens. Okay, thanks a lot.